Do you think it'd been?
It's
I don't think it's been too windy today.
Well, it is when you're on the top of a hill.
I
It was
suppose.
a good day to be a wind turbine.
Yeah. It was.
It was a good day to be an eco-warrior.
Started hailing when I was coming home from work.
Really?
Yeah. Only briefly, but I was coming down, coming down the road, and it started hailing.
Nice localized weather.
Aye. It was hailing for about 2 minutes, and then it stopped. It was like sort of spitting as I got into my car. And then
Do you know what? Have you ever thought about becoming a weatherman?
I should be. Northwest weatherman for BBC News.
That was just bang on, wasn't it, really?
Oh, absolutely. Get your coats on, it's a bit cold. Episode 2 of Moon Knight, long overdue.
And long since watched, in my case.
I've rewatched it in preparation.
I couldn't be bothered to rewatch it. Maybe says a lot about my attitude towards things, but nonetheless, we progress.
Now, I'll put it out there. I think it was better than the first episode. I actually really enjoyed it.
I don't.
Ooh. Contrasting opinion.
Which is a bit controversial.
Right. See, I enjoyed it in almost like a quick summary because we got to see a bit more of, I suppose, Moon Knight's character powers, and we get to really see who Mark Spector is as a person. He's a bit more involved in this episode as opposed to just Stephen.
Maybe that's the case though. With that, it's always more exciting to have a bit of mystery, isn't it?
Yeah.
So who is Mark Spector and so on. They've done that. They've still done that well though, because you've not played all the cards at once. There's still plenty of stuff left in the tank. Don't show all your tricks at once, and they definitely haven't.
Exactly, and I think the sort of final fight with that Jekyll was really well shown.
Drawn out, in my opinion.
Oh, do you think? See, I thought it was just right because we didn't get to really see the full skill set of Moon Knight, or at least Mark Spector's version of it.
I'm thinking about what part of the episode I didn't like the most, and I think it's got to be when. Oh, I'm struggling to remember names and everything here now. God, it's been a while. When Stephen is Mr. Knight, so he's in control of Moon Knight, not Mark.
Yeah.
And he's obviously not good at fighting. He's not an aggressive guy, and he's fighting that Jackal. It just feels drawn out, and the dialogue just feels a bit forced and unnatural, in my opinion.
I kind of agree. Go on.
Sorry, when Mark then takes over, I don't think they show Moon Knight that well, to be honest, because he just looks like he runs at a slightly above average speed, and you don't see much apart from he like jumps off a building and just slam dunks it onto the spire of some building.
Yeah. See, I kind of like that, but that's because I suppose we're not being shown the full skill set of Mark. That can be later drawn out in later episodes, but equally, I quite like what is it, Mr. Knight. I like the transformation into the character as Stephen's falling, and the fact that his depiction of a suit, which is what Layla had referred to him as having, is an actual suit, and that's how that character creation comes up. But also the typical
I like the
hero.
look of that suit.
Yeah,
but purely through. I don't think that's CGI, is it? That suit.
No, I think it's practical. Obviously, I think it's very similar to.
Immediately looks nicer.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what they do with Deadpool, where it's all a practical suit, and then the eyes are obviously CG, so they can have that glowing white effect, which I quite like. It just adds a bit. Obviously, a practical anything's better.
So the Egyptian god
Khonshu,
and obviously Moon Knight is someone who's randomly selected against their will by him to do his bidding in the world.
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing there's a disconnect between Khonshu and, like, let's call it the living realm, because he can't influence anything that happens. I'm guessing Moon Knight therefore serves to do his bidding in the real world.
Yeah, from what I can tell, and I think it's sort of explained in the episodes toward the end, it's I think Mark Spector was on the verge of death or was dying.
He might have been dead. I
Yeah,
think they made reference to, and he obviously reanimated him.
yeah, and as a deal for him to continue living, he's got to do so many tasks.
I don't. Khonshu, by the end of the episode, got to more of a point of what I expected of him and what I'd like to see from him and the role that he should play in the story. But when we first get introduced to him, he just seems like a bit of a whingy bugger, doesn't he?
Mark,
He's just like,
yeah.
no, Khonshu.
Oh, Khonshu, yeah.
As in, he's like, don't do it, Stephen. Don't do it. Don't give him that. I don't want you to do that. That's like so uncool if you give him that.
Yeah, it was an interesting take on the character, considering what we see in the first episode.
Yeah, he just seems a bit whingy.
Yeah.
And it's only later on in the episode that it becomes this, like, foreboding.
To be fair, though,
character.
Earlier on in the episode, which, I mean, we've skipped straight to the end, well, sort of the last half of the episode. In the first half, he goes to that locker, which is Mark Spector's, and they have that whole, like, epileptic light sequence of Stephen running through, and Khonshu sort of appearing and disappearing and turning around, and he's there, sort of thing, which seemed really intimidating. I mean, the character design, I think, is really well done, and it's very, very intimidating, I think, as a character design.
Yeah.
Which is, it's well done, and it's testament to the artists who've created the character. But
going into this second episode, so both the first and second episode, the best bit, in my opinion, continues to be Oscar Isaac's portrayal of Stephen. Because I just think that's such a compelling character, and there was quite a few points through the second episode where I genuinely felt like, just really sorry for him.
Yeah, I kind of, well, I don't know what the word would be, but there's a moment where he's just been fired as the gift shop person, and he's sitting on that park bench with the man who's dressed up in gold paint before, and he's having a dead heartwarming conversation, almost as if he's speaking to a brick wall, but he's obviously speaking to somebody. And there's just these zoom in shots, and I'm expecting this person to do something, and I don't know whether he'll play another part in later on in the series. Which could be interesting.
That's a good idea, actually. That didn't come across my mind at all. But it would be quite a nice and subtle way to add that in.
Yeah, whether I mean, I don't know what in terms of what character it would be, but whether there's an underlining factor, whether he's going to be the person to save Stephen, or it might have just been some random old person. Ultimately, it just might have been a character in the background.
Based off who is currently, or looking like, is going to be the villain in this film. You see, not knowing any names now, the guy who does the bidding for the Egyptian. Go on.
The Ethan Hawke's character.
Ethan Hawke's character.
Arthur Harrow.
That's it, Arthur Harrow. He looks like he's going to be the main villain, and it seems that they've gone for this theory of, because I heard someone say it before about, in relation to Thanos, and how the best villains are the most compelling because you can understand why, the motive behind it. So it's working off the big bad's main plot has to be something that you watching it could go, oh, that I could get behind that. I see what they're doing with that there.
Yeah.
And they've obviously gone for that with these two alternating theories of punish them or prevent them before the crime. Prevention is better than the cure, or you should allow people to change and make change.
No, agreed.
And not do something.
It becomes a more compelling villain, and I think in terms of Arthur Harrow, he's a more he's perhaps more relatable because he is human, as opposed to Thanos, who just wiped out half the population. But equally, we see in the end of I think it was at the start of Hawkeye. There's graffiti of Thanos was right and things like that. So there is a depiction in this universe of people do feel like that. So it makes Arthur's character even more compelling, that people would legitimately join this cause, and maybe it's because of Thanos they've joined this cause. Because there seems like quite a big population of them. Obviously, they've got this base somewhere in London.
This weird cultish convent in the centre of London.
I don't know how that's got past council taxes, but they've got this hamlet type thing in the centre of London, and they're all happy together. And they've got some good things like going. I mean, I know there's been a lot of people complaining about the Mandarin accents. I don't know, because I won't comment further on it because I don't know what the problem is. But
I don't even remember a Mandarin accent or anything.
It was something to do.
Being unobservant.
It was something to do with the language, because Arthur goes, we encourage people to speak 3 languages. Which I think I think in the real world it's a great thing to be able to do if you're multilingual. I'd love to speak fluently another language. But
so you've let him off the hook there, then? Basically.
Yeah, not entirely, but the sort of
he's such a learned and equanimous gentleman that it's all right if he murders people, because he can speak Mandarin and I don't know, German,
another language. No, but it's more compelling as a character because he is able to sort of get you on your side. You see that he does want to do good, but the necessary ways that he's going about it aren't correct. They're not ethical. They're not moral.
I'm still not quite sure where this is going.
No,
this series.
I don't, and that's what's exciting me about it even more.
We finish in Egypt. Mark Spector, who's a couple too many swigs of some form of spirit.
Yeah.
And we walk, and it reveals the pyramids of Giza and so on. But I've got no idea what Khonshu's wanting him to do, why Mark wants to be released, etc., etc.
I think it's something to do with some like grave or something. I think of the other Egyptian god, the crocodile lady, that's controlling Arthur.
It doesn't seem like she's controlling him as such, though. More that he's working with her.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Whereas then this is where it becomes more questionable as well. Because, well, at the end of the day, is Khonshu and Moon Knight, they are good overall. They're not perfect,
yeah.
But we would class them as a good guy, wouldn't we?
More of
in the same
vigilante.
sense that we class Deadpool, as a overall a good guy who does bad things.
Yeah.
But it makes it harder for us to perceive them that way, when obviously they have no will or choice behind the decisions that they make, because Khonshu's not give them a choice. But Arthur Howe, looks, or it appears as such, that he's got free will.
Yeah. I suppose that's the interesting thing with Stephen, because I suppose in a way Stephen does have free will. It's Mark who's obligated to follow Khonshu, and Stephen's there, so you've got this split dynamic.
Wonder, is it Mark Spector's? That's not Mark Spector's body. It's Mark Spector's conscience transposed into Stephen's body with his conscience.
Yeah. I mean,
they talked about how because Stephen was already broken, he was that's why he has Mark and this Moon Knight within him, because he was already so mentally fragile. It made it easier for Khonshu to inhabit his body.
Yeah.
So that brings more into question, doesn't it? Because how powerful is Khonshu then if he has to pick the most vulnerable people? Or we might come to learn later through this series that there was a reason why it was Stephen. Not because he was just easy to pick, but it might be like because of his he's so kind at heart, or he's something like that.
I mean, there's something I'd seen as well, because obviously I don't really know much about the character, but there's another personality. Obviously, we've got Mark Spector, and we've got Stephen. I've forgotten his last name now, which is bad of me. But we've got Mark and Stephen. There is another one called Jake Lockley, and this might explain who asked out the other girl, because it doesn't make sense if Stephen never asked her out, and
Mark obviously didn't.
Mark was technically married, even though he was signing up for divorce, which Stephen was completely perplexed about because he didn't know he was married, and he felt kind of bad that he was signing for a divorce that to a woman he didn't even know he'd married.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for this third persona to yet to be revealed, who might be more powerful than Mark Spector, who knows? And whether he's aware at all of Khonshu, whether he just keeps himself to himself.
Thinking about the episode now, there's not much more that I can remember really. The rest of it in my head, thinking back about it, seemed as like filler.
Yeah.
Or not filler, but not that important. It was just stuff to watch. Leading on.
I mean, the first half of the episode, to do a quick recap, obviously he wakes up and he's like, oh, don't know where I am, what's happening. Thinks it's all a dream, goes into work, and it's like, oh, the bathrooms have been busted up. So he looks at the CCTV footage and he's going to the security guard like, look, that's not me. And then it turns out it's just him.
You're gonna love this, mate. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Look at what happens down here in East London. and it just turns out it's invisible.
And then they do the typical Marvel trope of staring into the security camera. I think Bucky's done it, Wanda's done it, and Ant-Man's done it. So add Mark to that.
That was it. I thought about something whilst I was watching it, and I think it's with Moon Knight. They get away with heavy scenes with a lot of heavy exposition quite well through the fact that he's trying to find himself, because I've seen it someone's critique of like Christopher Nolan stuff is he just gives loads of exposition. I guess that's through the nature of the stuff he covers is always quite complicated conceptually, isn't it? Like say Interstellar.
Yeah.
But lots of characters just giving exposition rather than showing it through the plot. And there is a lot of this in Moon Knight, but they get away with it because of the nature of, say, Stephen trying to learn himself.
Yeah.
So they don't have to. The exposition isn't shown through the longer story or cinematography or blah blah blah, etc. They can get away with Stephen just literally having a conversation with someone about what's happened and then just explaining it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just stink of exposition.
No, it doesn't, because it works for the character. Obviously, in that moment, Mark was in control, but we get to see Stephen's view on it, even though he wasn't necessarily conscious at the time. So it does. Yeah. It works. It's clever writing, whilst also being sort of
first get introduced to Layla.
Yes, we do. Yeah, she hops in on the motorbike after we see Stephen go and basically rob Mark's guns from his locker.
Yeah.
Which was, I think it was quite a funny interaction, because Stephen doesn't know what's going on and she thinks he's having her on.
One of the things that I liked about it was when he's in this lockup and he's found all the guns and then Mark's talking to him through the mirror. Stephen has quite a realistic reaction to it, unlike what happens in most other films, where he was like, I'm just going to go tell the police and they can take me to like, I don't know, a psych ward and stop you from doing bad. And I thought, to be honest, if I was in his situation, I'd do the same thing, wouldn't
Yeah,
and I'm sure you probably would. Is it
I think I
you
would
just
though.
tell people and try and get help, but what happens all too far often in any other films is they try and hide it, don't they? And
Yeah,
then you sat there at home thinking, oh, and then it's gonna kick them in the teeth later on because they're gonna. What happens? The police are gonna come round and steal the guns, and then you should have just been honest from the start. Blah blah blah.
yeah,
And he takes the guns back with him, doesn't he, in the bag? And the
yeah.
police come round. Turns out they're not actually police, but the police come round. But there's no guns in the bag, is there? I don't think when they check it
There's the
because
fake passport, and I think there's, there was a lot of
yeah,
money in that
but
bag anyway, which would have
yeah,
been
but
suspicious.
especially
But
in the UK, where guns aren't legal, and if you're found in possession of one, that's a very serious offence.
yeah,
Even if they were pretending to be detectives, they would have made reference to the fact that there was a gun in there, wouldn't they?
probably, yeah,
So that's me assuming the gun didn't actually end up being in there when it went to his flat.
yeah,
So that's obviously relevant, or it's just a bit they've missed out, not thought was relevant,
maybe. But
glossed over.
maybe the identity of Mark Spector is potentially more important to them. Obviously, Mark Spector being the one who killed those archaeologists in Egypt, supposedly. And that's something that cult would have known about, considering they're after that scarab thing. So
Yeah, I'm maybe these archaeologists were working for Arthur
yeah,
Harrow's character, or they were just unassuming archaeologists, and they're trying to take something that was Khonshu's without knowing, so he had Mark Spector deal with them
yeah,
because
maybe.
he didn't want it dealing and taking back to the British Museum with with half of the world's like prized possessions.
I mean, you give it to the British Museum, you ain't getting it back. It's rightful claim of the British property. But yeah, I mean, I quite like that interaction of that bit in the back of the police car. Still, Stephen's still trying to convince everybody around him that he's not this Mark person, even though he knows he is Mark. And then he sort of gives in to it whilst he's in the police car, and then Ethan Hawke's character sort of responds on the walkie-talkie, opens the door, and it's like, come with me. If you give me your scarab, I'll help you, sort of thing. And that brings it to the
Yeah,
middle of the episode, where then there's the Layla comes back. She's got the scarab. The whole fight takes place, and the jackal comes out, or another jackal comes out and starts attacking him, and we get that
based
transformation
on
scene.
based on the snippet we get in the end of the first episode where Moon Knight's first revealed, and it seems quite gritty and full on the fight scene because
Yeah,
he's punching this jackal. Once it's obviously down on the ground and finished, but keeps on pummeling it.
yeah.
I don't feel like that type of fighting or violence, although I don't think violence is the right word, but that style of like combat being more gritty. I don't feel like it was continued in the
See,
second episode.
I,
Even when Mark Spector then retakes over, it feels completely different.
see,
It's a lot less visceral.
I kind of see it, and I kind of get your point, but I think the idea of, yeah, he does the running. Obviously, once Steven's done his fight and he's done, you know, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. My name's Stephen with a V bit, and punches him once. And then later on, Mark takes over and becomes, the classic Moon Knight, I suppose it is. There's then the bit where he uses that sort of moon crescent blade, slits the jackal's neck, and then as they're falling down the sort of slate roof, he picks him up and stabs.
I guess what I'm picking fault at there then is all the like pompous, flamboyant nature of him like
Yeah,
running away, and then I would have
that
preferred it if it was more like he was just running away and getting chased, and then there was a bit like
bit
bit
more
more
of a,
Campbell,
yeah.
yeah,
There's
rather
certainly
than.
a more
And I didn't
flourish to it.
I didn't like the dialogue from Layla where she's like, "Get him away from here," and then he's like, "Yes." It just felt too cliche superhero.
Yeah,
It felt a bit like Avengers Infinity War, when one of Thanos' like assistants, and I'm forgetting loads of names now, he's fighting Black Widow, and he's fighting. Is it Scarlet Witch, and she gets knocked down, and then Black Widow shows up and says she's not alone, and then it's like all the female superheroes and attack her. It felt a bit like that.
Yeah,
Obviously not.
I think it was Spider-Man when he got knocked down, weren't it? And then there was the whole.
No, because he was a female character, wasn't it? Because that was the like.
Oh, in Infinity War.
Infinity War.
Yeah, it was. Not Shuri. It's the other one from Black Panther, and then obviously there was Black Widow.
No, because the one from the God, this is reminding me of how many names I can't remember. The Dara Milaje. It wasn't the lady from the Dara Milaje because she showed up and was like, she's not alone. I think it was Scarlet Witch. Anyway, we're getting
sidetracked,
sidelined by just completely irrelevant points. We're just making a hodgepodge of it because we can't remember anything. So we're basically just going, this person did this and they did that and they did that.
I thought, as an overall episode, I thought the minimal use of CG was miles better in this episode.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? I get a bit fed up with CG sometimes.
Yeah, I was certainly
still working on it.
Yeah, I was certainly more immersed in this episode, and I thought the narrative was stronger. We see a bit more of the dual personalities and this inner conflict that now is arising within the character. You
liked it because you got the story more fleshed out, but I would say it was slightly less strong in my opinion. I in terms of summarising or talking about what was in the episode, I feel like that's all I've got to say. I think there was less to get stuck in with this time. It was just filling out the story a bit more.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, to be honest. I mean, this series is only 6 episodes, so there was going to be a filler episode somewhere along the line. I think we've still got some characters to be involved, like Midnight Man. He's got to be involved at some point, and we're a third of the way through the show.
Well, we're not quite a third, are we?
Well, we're 2 episodes in, aren't we? And it's 6 episodes big. 6 divided by 2 is a third.
Yeah, sorry, what did you say?
I said half. No, I said a third.
Hey, don't be starting with none of that maths.
Quick maths.
Yeah, and I've completely forgot about what point it was. Oh no, I wouldn't class it as a filler episode, to be honest. I'm quite happy with what speed the story feels like it's progressing at the moment.
It did have a good tempo.
It's definitely not doing what Book of Boba Fett did, which was how many did that have? 7 episodes?
I think it. Yeah.
First one, it got stuck in with it, and then didn't carry on with the story really until like the 5th episode.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So it doesn't seem like they're going to make that mistake with it. I think they're all going to be like of equal relevance and an equal amount of like content.
I suppose the Book of Boba Fett was a bit harder because it was basically a filler series for the Mandalorian, as opposed to
just poorly done in general. I think
could
have been better.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. But looking forward to Kenobi. That should be very good. Yeah, but with the episode, I think if I was to put a rating on, I enjoyed it more than the first episode, only marginally. I can't remember what rating I gave the first episode now.
Neither. So that's why I was gonna try and avoid rating. My rating will be slightly worse than the first one, but still a good episode.
Slightly. I'm out of 10. I'm probably gonna give it an 8.5, which I think is what I gave the first episode, but I think it was equally as good, if not better, than the first. So I'd give it a solid 8.5.
And you're not getting any numbers from me.
Oof.
Just my previous comment.
That's harsh.
That's harsh. You've been very, very harsh, Simon.
But yeah, fantastic episode. I look forward to episode 3, which should hopefully entice more of the Egyptian side of the storyline. Maybe we get a bit more background on Khonshu and how Mark became Moon Knight. Perhaps a flashback sequence.
Very much so.
Well,
So that's a wrap then, I think.
That is a wrap for episode 2. Episode 3.
Soon.
Soon.